Okay, the second part of example, it says, once you know the coordinates, which I just wrote them in the first part, we found s, h over 2 is the same as half h, k over 2 is the same as a half k, 3h over 2 is the same as 3 halves h, and a half k is the same as k over 2. So I wrote them down that way. And you want to show that they're the same, that they're congruent. Well, we know that the definition of congruent segments is that the lengths are the same. So we need to use lengths means distance formula. So if you write, so the distance formula is x1 plus x2, excuse me. I just wrote that wrong. I told you need to remember it right, and that's one of the mistakes is not to subtract. Okay, so there's those two. There's that one there. There's the distance formula, and I'm going to have to use it for two distances. I'm going to find the distance from P to T, and P to T is going to write it. Remember, minus, so we don't worry about double negatives. Not that there's any negatives the way we set this up, but just in case. Okay, and I guess I just have to call this, if I go down there, x1, y1, x2, y2 there. And so I'm going to get, when I do that, the x's are going to be 3 halves h minus 0 and 1 half k minus 0. So you can see that that 0, you could have chosen it somewhere else for point P. It would have made everything a lot harder to work with. But now I'm just going distances of h and k. So remember, if you go like this here, that's a distance of h. That's a distance of 2h. Okay? And this distance up here is a distance of k. Okay, so that's where we're at. Let's just simplify this, and I'm going to get PT is 3 halves h squared plus 1 half k squared. What's 3 halves squared? Well, it's 3 halves times 3 halves, which is 9/4 h squared plus 1/4 k squared. And don't forget the square root. And now I'm going to start working over here because I might need this extra space. I'm going to get PT. And what I notice is they're both over 4. So I'm going to get, got to simplify. They have a common denominator 4, so I can put everything over 4. And I'm going to get 9h squared plus k squared. Okay, now I can split it up. I can split up the square root to the square root of 4 and the square root of 9h squared plus k squared. Now remember, that top square root, you cannot take the square root of 9h squared and then take the square root of k squared and then add them later. You have to add them first, but I don't know what they are. So I'm stuck on top. On bottom, though, the square root of 4 is 2. So I get PT equals the square root of 9h squared plus k squared all divided by, so I'm going to put it in parentheses because I'm running out of space here, all divided by. Okay, so we found out after simplifying that the distance from P to T is 9h squared plus k squared divided by 2. I forgot to erase it underneath here. So I just rewrote it because it was all squished down here. I just rewrote it once I made some space for myself. And we need to also find SR. So SR is this one right here. SR. And we need to write it, and we need to get our X's and Y. So I'm going to call this, it doesn't really matter, but I'll call this X1, Y1. I'll call this X2, Y2. So let's figure out what's going on here. And I recommend, again, you're going to have some double negatives and things, so I recommend you go and then I'll write the numbers in green so you can see. So it's x2, we said was 2h, minus a half h. And we're going to get the y's is going to be 0 minus a half k. So I got those there. And we'll finish the rest of it in black here. SR equals the square root of, well, 2 h's minus a half h's is 1.5 h's, or 3 over 2 h's, and we're going to square it. And then 0 minus a half k's is negative a half like that. Okay, so it's kind of looking the same as before, if you remember what was done before, if you look on your notes. Well, that's going to be the square root of 3 halves is 3 times 3 on top, 2 times 2 on bottom, and h times 8. 9 h's squared over 4 plus, and this is where the sign is important, but we're going to not have, it's going to cancel itself out. Negative a half times negative half is positive 1/4, and 1 times k is k squared. There. It's looking very similar there. We're going to combine like terms, which is 9h squared plus k squared over 4. And just like before, we're going to have to split it up, and we're going to get the square root of 9h squared plus k squared over the square root of 4. And the square root of 4, remember, is 2. So I'm going to write it over here. SR. The top doesn't change. 9h squared plus k squared all over 2. And yippee-ki-yay, Mother Hubbard, we have shown that SR equals PT, and we know by the definition of congruent segments that means this this statement up here in the top corner is true.